Valentine's Day just a depressing holiday if you don't have a girlfriend? For me, it is. You know what I'm going to be doing this Valentine's Day? Watching a Three's Company marathon like I've done the last 5 years. And for those of you going out and getting laid with your girlfriends, think about this guy who was sitting here watching a fucking Three's Company marathon with my roommate. So, anyways, I decided to do a couples list. The top 10 TV couples for this year. Now, this is just this year's. There will be another year. Next year, there will be another list because a lot of them just didn't make it to a top 10 list. So, let's start off with number 10. Number 10, Marshall Dillon and Miss Kitty. They are on my list because they're iconic. They're the couple of the Western TV show. They were on for 20 years. And that's the reason why they're on the list, on this list. They never were really officially a couple. I mean, Matt goes by that whole superhero thing. Well, if my enemies found out about you, they'd kill you kind of thing. But everybody knew they were a couple. They had, you know, Matt was porking her every night before he got off work. So, I chose them because they were on so long and they held people's interest. But they never did anything really affectionate or anything like that. But they're on the list for being iconic. So, number 9, Howard and Miriam Cunningham. I chose Howard and Miriam Cunningham from Happy Days for a different reason. Because for that time, a lot of men were the Archie Bunker and they treated their wives like crap. You get in that kitchen and cook and clean. Well, I liked Howard because he treated her like a person. He treated her as an equal. They were equally a couple. And that's why Howard and Miriam are on this list. I mean, they ended up adopting Fonzie, even though, you know, they were just really a good couple. Is a father figure, mother to, you know, Fonzie and Richie. And that's why I chose them. There's really not much to say, but yeah, this is what I hope all couples will be like. Number 8, Mork and Mindy. And I know you're sitting there thinking, why'd you pick them? He's an alien, she's a woman, and they didn't get together until like basically the 3rd season. Well, Mork and Mindy are on it basically because they're hilarious. I mean, because Mork's this alien, he doesn't really understand how things are, and Mindy's got to teach him all these things. And I also find it hilarious that when they had a child, because they age backwards on Ork. You know, so their baby is an old man, which I just thought was funny, and how Mindy had to deal with that, and Mork saying, you know, saying, hey, this is our child, type of thing, and as they worked through it as a couple, as they should, they were equals, which they didn't really get. Like I said, they didn't get together until late to the 3rd season, and they were married within the 4th, and like I said, the last episode, they just go through time. But I hope Mork and Mindy stays this way as a couple and stays hilarious for all generations to come. Number 7, Locke and Sanka. Another fish out of water type couple. They're both foreigners from, you know, this TV show Taxi. And Locke and Sanka are hilarious. They didn't, you know, she came in later to the show, but it's hilarious how you have these two foreign couples, you know, and the word nick, which means sex, and it's like, there's this episode where they want to get a divorce. And basically it's because Locke had sex with another woman. And see that episode, and basically Jim gets him divorced and then remarries him. And it's hilarious. It just, the whole thing's hilarious how they are, how they work together. You know, I can't really describe why I chose them because you have to see it. It's a physical thing to see. So, yeah. Check them out. Number 6, George and Wheezy Jefferson. I picked them because they are freaking hilarious. George starts off being this racist type guy. You know, he was like the black Archie Bunker. And ends up, Sherman Hemsley really didn't like that. So, but basically, Wheezy Louise would get in his face. And it was so hilarious because he thinks, I'm the man, type of thing. And in later seasons, they show their love. They show how he cares for Wheezy, how she's his one and only, how he loves her, how she loves him. That there's nobody else for them. They're the perfect couple. And, yeah, I chose them because they're hilarious. So, number 5, Lois and Clark of Smallville. And you're thinking, why'd you pick these two? They're kind of current. They're not really a classic show. Well, it has a lot to do with Tom and Erica, with how they portrayed the characters. They, of course, didn't get together until later seasons. And they were, in the last season, going to get married. But I just liked how they played off each other. And I know that Tom and Erica are really good friends in real life. So, I think that brought a lot to it. And it had a lot to do with what the actors brought to it. Not really, and the way the writers brought to it. I really loved how, Tom Welling was acting as Clark, how he really loves her and how she loves him. They were just really good together. And if you haven't seen it, like I said, you have to go by, she doesn't make her appearance until season 4. But that's when the show gets freaking awesome. Erica Durance, if you see this video, you're what made Smallville awesome. And so do you, Tom. Okay, number 4. Helen and Stanley Roper from Three's Company. They made my list because I have relatives like these guys. I have an uncle that's just like he won't fuck my aunt. So basically, I chose them because they're hilarious. I mean, you got Mr. Roper who's looking at porn. He's got the binoculars, look at the girls at the beach. But, I mean, he doesn't want to screw his old wife. And I have no idea why he doesn't want to screw Mrs. Roper. She's cool. I would hang with Mrs. Roper. I would port Mrs. Roper if I had the chance. Shows you how lonely I am right now. But, I mean, I really love these two. Every time they're on Three's Company, and I actually watch their show, The Ropers, they always make me laugh with their whole sexual innuendos. How Stanley hasn't done it in years. I just really love these two. And that's why they made my list as number 4. Alright, number 3, Michael Knight and Stevie Mason, Knight Rider. I chose these two. I know she was only in 3 episodes. But they had a really, like I was talking about Tom and Eric a little bit ago, these two were actually a couple at the time. David Hasselhoff and Catherine Hicklin were, she was his fiancée in the episode White Bird. They got married during Let It Be Me, and during Send the Roses, they were already married. So when you see that transition where she dies in that episode, it's really, David's just giving him, he's probably thinking, this is my wife. What would happen if my wife was murdered? I chose them, even though they weren't on there too long, for this reason, because they were a real couple, and you believed how they came off. And that's why, Michael Knight and Stevie Mason are number 3. Number 2, Jack Tripper and Vicky Bradshaw from, Three's a Crowd, which wasn't a show that was only on about a season, but I loved how they worked together. In episodes, of course, Vicky made her appearance in the very last episode of Three's Company. But, it's like the whole thing is Jack wants to marry her. He's in love with her. He's head over heels in love. Vicky's parents have gotten divorced, and she's not ready for that yet. And she says she might never be ready for it. And, the whole show is Jack trying to convince Vicky to marry him. And it's so sweet, and as, Jack Tripper was in Three's Company, he's just, going after the girls. This one, he's only a one-woman man. He loves her, and there's, no other woman for him. And that's why they're on the list. Alright, number 1, should be no surprise to anybody. Colonel Steve Austin and Jamie Summers from The 6 Million Man and Bionic Woman. I am a huge 6 Feet Under Man fan, if you haven't been able to tell by watching my channel. I really love the episode Jamie appeared in The Bionic Woman, Part 1 and 2. She was brought in, played by Lindsay Wagner, who I still have a crush on, even though I know she's old enough to be my mother. But she and, Lee Majors have brought a lot to their character. I've been asked by many different people, do they have a romance going on? And I might say no. Lee was married to Farrah Fawcett at the time, and I don't think she was single at the time. But no, there never was any romance between these two. But it was so believable. You see that episode where, in this Bionic Woman, they're going to get married, and then Jamie's bionics are fucking up. And Steve goes after him, runs after him in the rain, and he picks her up, and he tries to get her, to get her repaired, and she dies on the table. And it's a very touching and sad episode. Well, Jamie became such an icon, she wasn't dead. She was in cryogenic storage in the Return of the Bionic Woman episode. And the whole episode is Steve loves her so much. He wants to be with her. She doesn't remember him because of her amnesia. But she and Steve ended up becoming friends. And he ends up taking her back to Ojai to get her memories back. And Jamie really doesn't, it keeps messing her up. And Steve has to make the heartbreaking decision to let her go. To let Rudy take her to Colorado, because Steve feels he's the only one causing her the damage. And the way Lee Majors does this performance, it's just really heartbreaking. And of course, Steve and Jamie would be back, and they would be crossovers. And of course, the TV movie. And there was a happy ending for these characters, if you want to know. There were 3 TV movies, and in the last one, Bionic Ever After, they got married after 20 years. For me, it was gratifying to see my 2 favorite characters finally get together. Much like, seeing Lois and Clark, you want to see them together. And it's just a damn shame they could have done it back in the 70s and not in the 1990s with the TV film. But Steve and Jamie are my all-time favorite couple. They're on here. #1 for that reason. So, have a happy Valentine's for those of you getting laid and with your girlfriends. And remember, think about me. And I gotta go. I gotta watch a Three's Company marathon.